I think that people want to believe that they can just, be an expert, that being an expert and that their expertise is what makes them stand out. Their quality of work is what makes them stand out. So it's like what I say is like, you can't build a business on expertise because expertise isn't what matters.
The Business Owner's Journey. I'm Nick Berry, and I've got real business owners telling their real stories, sharing their real lessons and strategies so you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Katelyn Bourgoin is a marketing strategist, the founder of Be Unignorable, and one of the sharpest voices you'll find bridging behavioral science with modern marketing strategy. Why do some experts become so well known for one idea while someone else who's equally talented stays completely invisible? Today, we get into buyer psychology, ownable ideas, and the real reason why expertise alone won't grow your business anymore. Expect to learn how to spot where the market's moving before everyone else, whether courses actually deliver the outcomes that buyers want. Katelyn's take on why expertise isn't enough to stand out anymore, the best and worst ways to find an ownable idea, but Katelyn's feedback on my parallel process reveals about why your business may have grown in spite of you, what makes positioning statements actually revelatory, how to shape what you believe into what your buyer needs to hear, her take on the future of services in the AI era, and much, much more. Katelyn's a phenomenal guest. Enjoy this episode.
It's funny. I started my journey as a agency owner, and now 15 years later, I'm an agency owner again. And there was this big period in the middle where I did all sorts of different things. So I guess what I would start with is a lot of folks right now are probably experiencing something similar to what, I think there's always this question that we have in service businesses or when we're selling expertise and we want to sell something more scalable, stop selling our time. And that was something that was really attractive to me about 3 years into my agency. We'd been growing quickly, but I was feeling kind of the call of like doing something that wasn't selling our team's time. And went through this whole journey, ended up building a VC-backed tech company that failed miserably, but looked really good for a while. Then it ended up building a creator-based and education business, which is more what I'm doing now, where it's more of like a media and course-based business. I'm in the process of pivoting to doing services. So I think it's an interesting, I guess, there's this through line through all of that, which is that I think as there's always this like shiny object syndrome that we have as entrepreneurs. And I think particularly as expert-based entrepreneurs, when there's so many different ways you could package what you do into something that people want to buy. And I guess one lesson I'd share with your listeners is that I think right now is actually a really exciting time to be in services because for a long time, figuring out how to scale a service-based business required having a lot of excellent talent and being able to be good at going out and getting lots of clients. And, businesses kind of just became bloated by nature of the beast. They wanted to deliver more services. They became an everything agency. I think with what's shifting in the world with AI and the way that like individual businesses want to hire and get support in their own business, I think it's a really exciting time to be in the world we're in because there's ways that we can augment what we're doing and create businesses that look more like what I've been calling brainware businesses, where instead of it being like a software business or a services business, it's this kind of cool thing in the middle. And so, yeah, I'd share that. Like I've gone through the whole spectrum of both and come back out being really bullish on where services can go.
You've put out some very successful products and then you discontinued them and you've made several pivots over time. Those are big decisions. I want to hear more about your thought process. How do you think your way through those decisions?
That's a great question. So I consider like I'm like a bit of a futurist in that I like to think that I can kind of see what's coming when it's still quite a bit down the road. And going back to my initial pivot from so my first agency was a branding agency. Started it at 25 years old, had no friggin' clue what I was doing. Grew it to a team of about 8. We were working with like clients with Target and Holiday Inn, but like I was like, I want to get out of the services world. I want to sell something more scalable than my time. And at that time, this is 2013, I was like, well, courses are kind of interesting, but that world's way too crowded. Like there's no space there. It's so saturated. Now remember, this is 2013. Like I was wrong. There would have been lots of opportunity to build a education-based business at that time. But I thought that it was too saturated and I decided I wanted to build a tech company. I see happening now when it comes to strategic pivots is like, I never wanted to sell courses because I've never thought that courses actually deliver the outcomes that a lot of people want. And as a person who cares about delivering outcomes, who wants my clients or my customers to get success out of their any work that we do together, I was, it was always to me kind of like alienated by that industry because it felt like it was a lot of smoke and mirrors and not a lot of value being created for the majority of buyers. And so I decided to do the tech company. That was the leading decision why I didn't go into the education space then. And I, at the time, could see that women were a huge opportunity in untapped market when it came to business because there were all of these women building these creator businesses, coaching businesses, like basically selling digitally online. And I saw an opportunity to build a network specifically for them. And I was like, women are creating businesses at the fastest rate in history. And the way that they do business and approach things is differently. And I think we could build a community specifically for women entrepreneurs to actually be able to do business together. Now, this is again 2013. And at that time, I was like, there's this huge thing happening with creator businesses. And there's an opportunity to be able to build this space specifically for women who were also starting businesses at this rapid clip. But going out and pitching that to VCs was really friggin' hard because they didn't understand anything about the creator economy that was about to happen. They didn't understand why I would build a business that just targeted women because as a marketer, that's obvious to us, right? Like understand your ICP, be really targeted. But so raising funding for that was a real challenge. Figuring out how to scale was a real challenge. I didn't have the right technical team in place. But like the way that I guess to come back to this like decision making framework is like I try to look ahead at where I see the market is moving and figure out how to get there sooner. The reason why I with after Vendeeb, which was my VC-backed tech company, like it was looking great from the outside. We had raised money from like a prominent VC. Eventually, it took me time to get there, but like we were being called like the next LinkedIn by Inc. magazine and Forbes. But like internally, we had built a product that just kept breaking and it wasn't sticky, and people would join and then they would not stick around. And so as a platform, it was never going to work unless I could figure that retention piece out. And we just didn't have the runway to do it. And I didn't have the team or the experience to do it. Like I was too inexperienced. And it's funny because years later, like 5 years later, a company launched called Chief. Similar concept, network for women entrepreneurs. Now I think like a $2 billion business. So
Mhm.
I just didn't execute it well, but the idea was right. But to kind of answer your original question, I went on this meandering way. I think that I try to look at where current tensions are and try to figure out how to solve for those ahead of time. And this is why I'm so excited and bullish after like making millions of dollars in a education and media based company. I think that world's going to change dramatically in the next coming years. And I want to get out of it and get into where I think the market's moving before that change happens.
Where do you see the market moving now?
I see it moving to something like brainware companies. I think ultimately so I had a conversation with Nathan Barry, who's the founder of Kit, on his podcast back in 2022. And I talked to him about how I didn't like people selling courses because, again, like they don't often get people the outcomes. Nobody wants to take a course. People want to get the outcome promised by the course. And so I think there's going to be this future where people who have a specific methodology and approach to getting an outcome, in my case, that's helping people to figure out what they want to be known for and to build a personal brand and authority around it. I think in the future, you'll see that rather than creating kind of like or courses where people have to figure out and do it on their own, you'll see this movement towards non-technical people being able to build technical solutions that allow them to scale their expertise and deliver it in this really new, interesting kind of like hybrid way. So what I'm trying to build with Unignorable now is that it's basically done for you model, but we're building a lot of infrastructure in the back end that allows it to still be scalable. And so I think that you'll see a lot more of that, where you'll see service-based agencies picking one narrow focus of something that they want to do and an outcome they want to deliver for clients, and figuring out how to, with the combination of really smart people and processes and these new tools that we all have access to, deliver that outcome for their clients and do it more predictably and scalably than we ever have before. So I think that's where things are going to move, and people will want to pay for the outcome, not the information.
So yeah, that's very interesting. So is that like you're outsourcing your infrastructure? So if you're the idea person or you're the creator, so you can focus on that. You take your role, and then I can come to you, and you have my infrastructure. Or what does that look like?
So it looks like for us is like, so the central argument that I have for building Unignorable is that I believe that expert entrepreneurs in particular, like they don't get known for being good. They get known for like this one idea that people associate with them and that that's the way to grow a business. And I think it's always been true, but I think in the current landscape we're in, it's more true than ever. And so, but how do you figure out what you want to be known for? How do you figure out what the thing is that you want to really drill in on and create a message around and create your and build your business on top of? And for a lot of folks, figuring that out on our own is really effing hard. Like there's a whole bunch of cognitive biases that are working against us to actually figure it out on our own. We overthink our own stuff. We're much better at reasoning other people's problems than our own. And so I feel like there's this huge opportunity for expert entrepreneurs to figure this out and that it's going to be the launch pad for their businesses. And it's also really hard to do alone. And so I was thinking of like, okay, like so I ran the Unignorable Challenge, which was a 30-day group cohort with the team at Demand Curve. And we helped a lot of our students get amazing outcomes. Like they went on to build like audiences that completely changed their business and their life. But they were the minority, right? Like a lot of people that went through that, we had over 1,800 students. There was a lot of people that never applied it, that never actually did the work, that still felt stuck because it's hard to figure this stuff out on your own. And so the way that it works inside of Unignorable is that basically we work with our clients. We're building a complete methodology that's kind of like very systematized on how we help to get into their head and kind of like extract their brilliance. And then we go out and we do deep market research because, as you know, I'm nerdy about why people buy to understand their audience. And then we work together to shape what they want to say and what they believe into what their audience wants to hear, into a message that can be that their platform. And the process of doing that requires all of this, like kind of like there's all of these steps. And if we can use AI and automation to kind of like automate more of the steps, the stuff where you don't need the smart strategists, like the research side of things, like the onboarding of the clients, all of these kind of like manual steps, the more of that we can automate, the more the time we spend actually with our clients becomes really high value. And so then we can deliver for them an outcome that they're willing to pay a premium for because they get an outcome that's meaningful, but do it in a hopefully less bandwidth on the team's time. So that's kind of like the model I'm working towards.
AI, it's going to make the whole thing more of a practical endeavor for that idea owner to have all of these other capabilities. Yeah. So Joe Daniels.
Mhm. Joe went through the beta while I was trying to figure out, is this actually going to work? Or is this just like a big thing that I have in my head that's never going to work?
So
So
Joe was a previous guest on the show, and I
amazing.
communicate with him, and
Yeah.
I think really highly of him. So he's paid you some very high compliments in our conversations. He said insanely valuable and helped me package how I think into something that I can actually communicate.
Joe. And so just so your listeners have some context that you and I have, Joe is a messaging and offer expert.
Right.
He struggled for 3 years to do this on his own because it's so effing hard to do on your own. I'm in the process right now, like, once I actually publicly launch this, I will be hiring people to help me with the messaging for this because it's so hard to do on your own. I'm already working with Joe on helping to shape the offer. So there's no shame in getting help with this, even when you're an effing expert.
I would take it a step further. It's beyond there's just no shame. Like that's what the best do.
It is
Right.
true.
It's like he's not an exception in doing that. You're not an exception. I'm not an exception. Like that is what you do is you
Mhm.
go find the people who know how to do this part of it and you enlist their help.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And so since we worked together, Joe has found his ownable idea, and for him, that is buyability. And what that means for Joe is that, like, essentially, we're again like looking at what's changing in the world. People used to spend a whole bunch of time trying to like research which companies they wanted to work with, figure like they would do sales calls, they would kind of like go through the whole process with a few different vendors before they would decide who they're going to work with. That's not how we buy anymore, right? We often discover somebody, often a thought leader through social media or we get referred to somebody and we go and we start like consuming their content and then we get to their website and we look at their offer and we try to decide, is this going to solve my problem? Do I understand what it is? Am I curious enough to want to move the next step, whether that's like saying yes right then because it's so clear and so buyable that you can say yes right away, or whether it's okay, I'm definitely booking a sales call to like move forward because I'm so convinced and I want to work with these folks. So there's this big shift happening in the way that businesses make buying decisions, and Joe is at the forefront of explaining, how do you make your company viable? How do you make your service offering viable? How do you package it in a way that instead of just saying contact us for a quote, which we all know, we've all been on those websites, and how often do you actually move forward? If it's not through a direct referral or you've been following that person for years, then maybe you move forward. But what happens with all those people that are landing on your website, that are discovering you, that never take the next step because your offer is not clear, it's not viable, they don't know exactly what they're going to get? That's the work that Joe does now. And since he reframed how he talked to what he did, because he used to call himself a homepage messaging expert, right? Since he reframed what he does around being viable against this idea of not having to sell harder, but be more viable, he's generated within the first couple of weeks, it was like 100K in pipeline. I'm not sure where he's at now in terms of the change, but it's been a massive change for his business because he's clearer on it now. And if a brilliant expert like Joe needs help to get clearer on it, then what hope do the rest of us have, right?
Right. Exactly. Somebody like Joe, for them to have an ownable idea, is this something that it already exists and they just haven't named it yet?
Often, yes. Yeah, often what it is that they will have a strong opinion, a belief system, and a way of doing work that is different, but they've never actually been able to sit down, articulate it, tease it all out. And what is often the case is they don't even recognize their differentiated approach in the way that they should, because to them it's obvious. And it's like, well, of course you do it this way. And then when we're having conversations with them and we're pulling this out and we're looking at the competitive landscape, because a lot of what we do is looking at what else is out there. What are other people saying? How are people buying solutions in your space right now? Because we want to be able to differentiate our clients. And a lot of the times, the things that they do that are different, they kind of discount them. They don't realize how unique they are. And so it's our job to help them identify those too and go, wait a minute, stop right there. Like that thing you just said is really powerful. And you're not even talking about that. And like, so a lot of it's often that work, and it's kind of like excavating it out of them, which requires us to go off and do a lot of kind of like pre-work to understand the landscape in the market so that we can spot those things. So it's like very much in them already, but it just needs to be pulled out.
Some refining and then
Mhm.
taking that to market as its an own path from
Mhm.
there.
The way I frame it is we help people to find, shape, and share it. Because oftentimes, especially people who are not necessarily natural marketers like Joe, the way that they talk about what they do and what makes them different is absolutely true and absolutely important, but it's not framed in a way that the buyer needs to hear. And
Mhm.
so even they'll keep saying this message that is like a belief system that's really powerful, but it's just not framed right. So much of what we need to do is then take that and go, okay, this is what you want to say. We're going to help shape that into what your buyer needs to hear.
So, for example, Joe now may feel like he's still talking about the same things that he's always talked about,
Mhm.
but now he's framed it differently. It's framed it in a way that it doesn't need to be translated again
Yeah.
for the message recipient.
Mhm.
It's the things that he's talked about, the things that he's already believed, generally speaking it.
And a big piece of this too is you've got to like the language of making it sticky is a huge part of what we do and we're really good at. Because when you think about, so just so your listeners have context, like we're talking about ownable ideas, like as though they would know what they are, but they're not going to know what they are. So an ownable idea is essentially a mental territory that you can own, that is when you're effective in owning it, when people think of that thing, they think of you. And like when somebody else is sharing that idea, it sounds like an echo coming from anybody else. So some examples of these, I'm going to name some ownable ideas, and then I want you to say if you know who who said them. So who's the first person that comes to mind when you hear start with why?
A cynic?
Yeah, right? Who, when you hear atomic habits, who comes to mind?
Is that clear? James Clear?
It's James Clear. What about story brand?
I can see the cover of the book and I can't think of his name. We talk about him all the time.
But you know him, right? You
I
know
do.
him. He's there. There's not like 5 people that go, "Oh, it could be this guy, that girl." No, there's like a
Right.
person that owns
Yeah.
the space. Donald Miller's the
There
guy.
you go.
And so there's like to become an idea owner, it's not just about coming up with some clever like language, right? Like Atomic Habits had a really clear argument that was completely different from most productivity and habit formation advice that had been out previously. Before, people had just talked about like, consistency and like working harder. And like he was like, no, he's like, you need to actually create like it's the small like repetitions and like figuring out like the thing that's going to make it easy for you to do, that's going to make it fun for you to do, that's going to remove friction. Like if you can figure out these things and you can optimize around that, you can actually make progress on the things you care. Like he had a completely different framework and approach to habit building and like to productivity than anybody else had been talking about before him. And so it's not just that the language Atomic Habits is clear, is compelling. You have to have the underlying story and approach that's different. And that's what we help people to shape up. That's what we help people to find. But once you do, and you can wrap it in language that spreads, that's where it spreads like fire. And that's with Joe. He already had the whole approach that was different. He already had an argument for why people were doing this in the wrong way, but he hadn't wrapped it in the buyability language yet. He hadn't figured out the exact story and how to talk about it yet. And that's the work that us doing it together just crystallized it for him.
Okay. So my example might be the parallel process. My thesis is that for an expertise business to grow, the founder has to grow as a leader alongside the business having to grow.
I like that.
Like
Now,
it's
here's my
developed.
question is, I think that that's absolutely true. I don't know that I've not heard that before. So this is where there's the opportunity to keep shaping it, right? Because like when I think about the key ingredients to an ownable idea, one of them is it needs to be revelatory, which is much easier to write than to say. But like it needs to be something where somebody goes, "Oh, I haven't thought about it that way before." So let me kind of share an example. Everybody wants to like, in all of history, humans want to be able to have like to be financially secure, do work that they care about, not have to work too much. Like that's all true. We've all wanted that, right? Lots and lots of people have made a lot of money by meeting that desire with a new message. So you look at somebody like Justin Welsh, right? Justin Welsh didn't create the word solopreneur, but he completely reframed it and made it a movement. And the way that he came about it is he shared something kind of revelatory. Before Justin started talking about solopreneurship, most people thought that the way to build wealth and success was to start a big company, raise a bunch of money, become the next unicorn tech company. That was like what success looked like for a lot of ambitious people. Or it was keep moving up the corporate ladder, get the biggest title you can get the, be part of the C-suite. Like there was paths to success, but work by yourself as a solopreneur was not a path that people saw as quote unquote successful until Justin reframed it. And he reframed it and said that actually being a solopreneur wasn't about building a small business because you couldn't build something bigger. It was because you chose to build small, because you wanted the freedom that came with that path. And you could still make a lot of money on that path. I mean, how many people out there were selling make money on the internet before Justin? Everybody. So many people, right? But Justin was able to offer a new lens on how to go about it and create an identity people could step into that didn't sound like anything they'd heard before. Small used to be bad. Justin made small actually an intentional, thoughtful choice and gave people an identity they could step into. So I'd say when it comes to figuring out the ownable idea, there needs to be like a revelatory component. And I think that yours is there. I think that there's an element to shape it where it becomes more like like I didn't think about it that way before, because that's what makes people pause and go, because a lot of times like we might give advice that's good, but it's good and they already know it. So it's not going to have the stickiness.
Yeah. Yep. I can see what you're talking about. It's some of it would be maybe language, but some of it also is going to be the point of view itself. It needs to,
Absolutely.
we're going to have to show them the image from a different angle or under a different
Exactly.
light.
You need to figure out like, how do I share this in a way that meets the like, meets a core desire that my audience has, that solves a painful problem that they're experiencing, and that shows them a new solution, right? Because it's the new solution and the new approach. Solopreneurship for many people was not something that looked like the ideal solution. And then when Justin framed it the way he did, another great example of somebody who did this masterfully is Cody Sanchez with Boring Businesses, right? Again, same basic argument of Justin, which is you want to be wealthy, you want to be successful. You think the path to doing that is to start some sexy startup or to, crush yourself in like a 9 to 5. But actually, idiots, there's all this money to be made on Main Street. Buy a plumbing company, buy a car wash. Like that was like, what? Like, I never thought about like I was thinking I was gonna do, the next unicorn tech company, or I was gonna do like some sexy direct to consumer product, like a car wash. And then she's like, yeah, they're like, so it's like that revelatory nature where it's like boring businesses are actually the path to wealth. When you hear that the first time you hear it, you go, that's what I thought was true. And that needs to be a piece of it for it to really take off. And so for me, when I think about ownable ideas, it's like the underlying element there is like people keep thinking, oh, I need like a personal brand, or like, oh, like I'm an expert. So like I just need to keep stacking credentials and like, doing good work, and that will help me to grow my business. I don't think that's true. I think that was more true years ago. I think that now the path to building an expert led business is to be known for something hyper specific that nobody else is like, that you become the de facto solution for that. And I think that was true for the people who always had like big breakouts, like the Simon Sinek's of the world. But I think now with AI noise and like commoditization of services, it's like the only path.
So why is there resistance to that?
Well, because I think that people want to believe that they can just, be an expert, that being an expert and that their expertise is what makes them stand out. Their quality of work is what makes them stand out. So it's like what I say is like, it's you don't become like you can't build a business on expertise, because expertise isn't what matters. Like expertise doesn't matter anymore the way that we always would. People would think I'm just going to get more credentials. I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to get like this, like, I'm going to have this proof point, these great case studies. And that's the thing. It's like, no, like that's not enough.
Yeah. And we get kind of tied up in this thinking about things in the way that we've always thought about them. And so we have to kind of break that thought pattern for, I can keep thinking about the parallel process and the growth for the founder, their development as a leader and a business owner, and alongside the
Parallel process language, by the way. It's like it's sticky. It's like it's got that alliteration that's nice, makes it more spreadable. Like it creates curiosity, or like, what does that mean?
yeah. And I think what you were just saying was that like I know it inside and out. Knowing it better is not
Mhm.
that's not the missing ingredient,
I
right?
think maybe, and this is the as I think through yours now, like we have a whole process running through this with our clients, but like on the off the jump, what I like about the parallel process from a visual perspective, and like where I think the revelatory statement is like like most people think they probably think that the reason their business isn't growing is business related. Right. It's like, I don't have the right team. I'm struggling with pipeline. And the revelatory way of framing that is like your business isn't your bottleneck, you are, right? Like, and that becomes like a bit of a different thing. And that's not the right language. We'd have to sit down and like really think about the narrative. But it's like your business has probably grown in spite of you. That might be revelatory. Like you've gotten to the success you've gotten to in spite of yourself. And people are gonna be
Mhm.
like, what? Like I wanted to take, I want to take credit for where I've gotten to. Like I've worked my ass off to get here. And it's like, no, you probably got lucky. You probably had some things that worked out, because if you've not been growing in parallel with your business, then like, you're not going to keep growing. So like,
It's not going to outgrow you. It's doing
yeah,
what you've designed it to do.
yeah.
And you can
And
kind of,
that,
I mean, I can feel the dissonance just thinking through that.
hmm
Yeah, I like that.
And of course, like if we were to sit down and do this like in a formal like engagement, there's all this elements to it too, right? It's like figuring out the who, because like to me, the one that I just shaped up, like that works well if you're going after a pretty successful expert entrepreneur, right? So if you're going after somebody who's built up like an 8-figure agency, and you come to them with the message of like your business is growing despite you, they're gonna go, what? Like, what do you mean? And like that's one of those like, wait a minute, like, and so, but if you're saying that to a, entry level freelancer, that message isn't going to have that same like stickiness, right? So it's
Mhm.
about figuring out who you're going after and how to shape that message too.
Yeah, it's not near the slap in the face to someone who is probably goes through every day thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. Of course
Hmm.
I'm the problem.
Hmm.
Okay, so where is as far as the timeline with Unignorable and having this like the brainware concept to market, is my understanding is that it's not final.
So we're doing our next round of betas. Joe was part of the first cohort of betas. I took on 5 clients. I mean, we work with them all one on one. There's no like group component. But I wanted to do a cohort of clients using the process, kind of like improve the process, made massive changes from the work we did together since that time. All the clients, I was really happy with the outcomes from it, as with the clients like Chris Piper, who was joined with us for that beta. Like he's now going to hit $1 million a year, like his first year as a consultant, which is pretty impressive. Now he's an amazing track record. But I actually use his strategy when I was presenting to this next group of potential unignorable clients, and 2 of them ended up hiring him. So that's how good his messaging is now. Because I'm like talking through like, and this is the problem that Chris solved, and he's expensive. So that worked out well. But so now I'm doing another cohort. We're doing 4 clients in April. I'll do another 4 in May. And by then, my hope is that I will have enough of the process codified and the methodology streamlined enough that I can determine how I want to do the next version of this, whether it's launching and continuing to build it as an agency, whether it's building a software component where there's an element of like you work with a strategist, but there's some element of like via these like the software that we're building in the back end. So I'm still figuring that out. I don't know exactly what it looks like come June.
But right now it's the cohorts are month long and you have
3-month
April and May.
engagements.
Okay.
So yeah, 3-month engagements. But I'm doing a kind of like rolling enrollments. So like 4 clients in April, 4 clients in May. We still got 1 spot left for May. And then from that, I'm not going to commit to anybody for June because I want to use what I'm learning with these first ones to really streamline the process so that I can know how to scale it. Because there's basically 2 paths. It's like either we continue to do it in the version that looks like now, where I hire a bunch of great strategists and copywriters to like work with our clients ongoing, or it looks more, or I build a kind of like lower cost offer where there's more work happening with like an AI solution that the client can interface with directly and less completely done for you. So I'm not sure which path is going to be the one that I want to go after. It depends if I can get the output of the tools that we're building to a place where they don't need the like amazing strategists and copywriters to get amazing results. And if we can't, then we keep the humans in doing the work. So, yeah,
Probably a matter of time before you can, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So where can we go to get more information about that?
Beunignorable.com is where you can sign up for the newsletter. When we're looking to get new clients, we'll do like a email out saying people can apply. And then we'll just kind of like find the ones that are the best fit for the service and work with those folks. So there's not really a way that you can kind of go and apply right now. But if you're on the email list, then you'll be first to know when applications open again.
You just need to follow them and pay attention.
Yeah.
Be ready. Katelyn, thank you very much. I appreciate what you do. You're very insightful. You're a fantastic guest. A pleasure to
Well, thank you, Nick.
to collaborate with on this. Thanks for sharing and spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, you can say thanks and show your support simply by taking a quick second to like, share, and comment on the show. You can also find more information about each of my guests, all of the resources from the show, and myself at nickberry.info/TBOJ.